Welcome back. Alex Cranz is here. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Nilay Patel, also here.
Hey.
It's Google time, and we're going to talk about Google. I'm very excited to talk about Google. We never talk about Google. It's like this little company that we don't really care about on this show. So once a year, we have to be interested in Google.
I can't tell you how much I think about Google every single day. I don't know why you think that I don't talk about Google all the time. Maybe we just don't talk about it on the show.
Is Google the most front of mind tech company for you right now?
I think what I'm finally revealing to the Vergecast audience is that Nilay Patel is not allowed to sit here and pontificate about the open web on the show he co-hosts as often as he wants to.
You are allowed to do that, just in small boxes. You can do this much pontificating about the open web in every episode. It's going to be fine. All right, well, let's do this. So I gave both of you the same homework. I did my homework too. Let's go in terms of the way we did it for the streaming draft. The one who signs our checks first. Nilay, you get to go first. Let's do open questions. What's your first big picture open question for Google right now?
Can Google get it together to ship an AI-powered search product that lasts more than 6 months?
Wow.
Just given the history of Google, I don't know the answer to that question. Will they have 5 of them? Will they ship a new one every 6 months? I don't know. I just truly do not know the answer to the question of whether Google can focus.
That's really interesting. I mean, it is kind of true that the two ways Google operates are to either you do search, which is you do one thing, you get it really right, and then you basically never meaningfully change it for 2 decades, or the messaging app strategy, which is to do a different one every quarter for the entire existence of your organization. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, and it makes sense. If you just look at Google's business, it makes sense. Search makes all the money. They are focused there. That is an advertising business that Google never, ever talks about. And then they have YouTube, which is fine, but it's not nearly the size of search. Also an advertising business primarily. And then they have Google Cloud, also teeny tiny. Search is just a monster. And so they can't touch it. They have an innovator's dilemma problem with search, where to change it and to compete in the new AI market, they've got to take all of their profitable search customers and move them to a product that might not make any money yet. And that's just impossible.
But do they? Because one of the things we've talked about a little bit, and I'm about to rev Nilay up, so apologies in advance, David. But one of the things there's the copyright element of this too, right? The law isn't settled on the chatbots.
Suppressed no longer.
This happened so much faster than I thought it was going to.
Just speed run there. That's the rest of the podcast. That's the show, guys. But right, that is kind of a risky thing because the law isn't settled there, and so if they go and start rewriting Verge articles,
yeah, no, I mean this is do you have conviction? So early Google, and we're going to do a year of Google stories because we are currently obsessed with how Google will change. In particular, how the change in search behavior changes the whole internet.
Right.
Because it's just sort of the default, right? So one of the pieces we want to do is that all of the copyright law on the internet, most of the law of the internet, has interacted with Google in some way. And Google has mostly won because when they were a baby company spending venture dollars, they were look at search. Isn't search good? Look at our goofballs making search.
Yeah. Do no evil.
And they could burn money on lawsuits. And they usually won because they were sympathetic. Now they're the villain, right? They're the big bad. And it's a bunch of Hollywood screenwriters are don't do AI. And they're going to go to court and they're not burning venture money. They're burning dollars that could otherwise go to their shareholders. And so there's just a real tension inside of Google. Can you shut down this version of search while building up the new AI search while not pissing everybody off? And what if they try and fail and they shut it down and start a new one? What if they do 6 at once, like messaging? To me, this is just the biggest open question. Can they focus? And then all the things you're talking about, copyright law and regulation, and that's all underneath. They have to believe in what they're doing to overcome all those problems. And historically, with new products, Google's belief runs out at 6 to 18 months.
Yeah.
One of my questions was this is my alternate question does Google actually need to worry about the AI revolution? because it's like the innovator's dilemma thing is so real, but like, everybody is really worried about the future of Google. I'm not sure if that's based on anything. And like ChatGPT is very successful and like a mess and has full of problems, many of which are going to get worse, and people are starting to get more and more concerned. And like the guy, the godfather of AI, just retired and said he regrets his life work. And we're in this place of like, there's a pretty big, I think, pendulum swing back in the AI hype that we're due for. And like the question of does Google actually need to bet the company on AI in the way that you're describing? I really wonder if that's true. And if you're Google, you really can't afford to wait, because if it is true and you wait, you've lost and your $1 trillion company starts to disappear. But it does not seem like a guarantee to me that Google absolutely needs to bet the farm on this right this second.
I feel like as long as their primary competitor is Bing, they can just sit back.
That's exactly right.
They don't need to work. Like, Bing is the underpinning of so much of that, and it's garbage.
Well, Bing search, but ChatGPT is not garbage.
Yeah, but ChatGPT is currently garbage at the kind of search that Google does well.
That's true, but the fundamental thesis of Google for so long is ask this robot a question and it will tell you an answer. Mm-hmm. And ChatGPT is better than Google at that thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, like, on top of it, there's a lot of reporting recently that Apple's big search deal with Google that is under scrutiny from various antitrust regulators, that's up for renewal. Okay. And Microsoft has somewhat muscled it. God, I mean, if Apple signs with anybody with Google, that'll be ridiculous. But
Bing is so bad. Don't do it, Apple.
They're going to extract all of the concessions they can out of Google there. There's reporting, I think last week or the week before, that Samsung's deal for search is up. And Samsung is like, well, we're already pretty mobbed up with Microsoft, the preload office on the phones. They might move because a ChatGPT powered assistant, especially when you're up against Siri, is like not a bad competitive advantage. Right. So there's just, I don't think it's going to go overnight. This is not like Google is Google. They're the plumbing of the internet in like a huge and important way, and they're not going anywhere. But the threat is real, and their ability to focus on handling it, containing it, and growing through it. That, again, that's just my big open question. Can they focus?
Yeah. It's a good one. All right, Alex, what's your first open question?
I'm gonna riff off the AI thing here. My other one is totally unrelated, but this one is, what does Google Assistant look like in like a chatbot world? Like if ChatGPT is out there doing its thing, and we've seen like it hack to work with Siri and make Siri actually not stupid, what's Google Assistant like? Like, they've been kind of one of the top ones, and they've kind of sucked. Nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah, remember how for like 8 years, Google Assistant was the absolute future of everything? And yes. No one at Google would shut up about Google Assistant?
Yes, every I.O.
And now all of a sudden they're like, who cares? You are right. Like, it is Google Assistant plus like the underpinnings of some of this large language model stuff could be right back in the mix there. Like, it's not super far off, but it does seem like all these companies are starting to run away from these voice assistants.
Well, I mean, there's a huge problem with voice assistants, which is you really can't check their work, right? Like, you ask it a question, it tells you an answer, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and inject some bleach. Like,
sure.
That's what it said. I don't know. You ask it for directions, and it's just like an LLM confidently lies to you, and you drive off a cliff. Like, these are real problems for that model of interaction with a computer. And Google, I think, has always been, to its credit, very responsible with, we shouldn't lie to you too much. Sometimes, like, the answers at the top of a Google search results page have been wrong. Google Assistant has been wrong. Alexa has been wrong. Like, yes, there's an error rate, but Google at least has been like, we should keep that error rate low. And I think if you just let a chatbot go wild underneath that error rate goes up in like dramatic ways.
So you're saying like the stakes are too high with audio interfaces versus like written interfaces.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen written LLMs try to convince their users to do dumb things.
Siri tries to convince me to do dumb things all the time.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
Start timers. They're always wrong.
Siri's like, the football game that you're already watching is on. Would you like to switch to it?
No.
Yeah, Alex, do you buy audio as an ongoing interface? I feel like voice has been through the hype cycle like 6 or 7 times now.
Right. Yeah. I still think it is. I mean, I watched a lot of Star Trek in April, so that could be like fueling this here, right? Like you want Majel Barrett telling you that the ship's got red alert right now, but yeah, I think it is very, very useful. I think it allows some people who can't use other versions of like computer interaction. It gives them that accessibility, but it's also just really useful when it's like 2:00 in the morning and your dog's throwing up and you want to know what time it is because you don't have your glasses on.
Right, but that's all commands.
Yeah, those are all commands, right?
You're like, lock the door, engage the water dispenser, or like whatever it is, right?
But I think that those cooking is continues to be that killer application. Like they do it every time, right? Every Google I/O, they're like, look at how great Assistant is at preparing your chicken. And I would love for it to be better because it's still very, very stupid. Right now, if you ask it conversions and stuff like that, stuff you really need to be doing quickly while you're cooking in the kitchen, sometimes it does it, and sometimes it's like, I don't know what you want from me.
Yes. I asked it how much percentage of something else was, and it was like, here's some stuff I found from the web. And I was like, you're a computer. This is the one thing you're supposed to be able to do.
And if it had like that large language model underneath it, maybe it would be inaccurate, but it would be more, it would sound...
It would be confidently wrong.
It'd be confident. I wanted to confidently tell me what a tablespoon is.
Well, so this is what I'm getting at with voice in particular, right? We've seen people have these like lengthy, disconcertingly horny conversations with Bing, right? It's a thing that we've all experienced together. And they had to cut down the number of repeated interactions you could have with most of these chatbots because they go off the rails after a long period of time.
Yeah.
Now just like take that and impose it on a voice assistant that sounds like a person that's talking to you and give that to a kid or a lonely elderly person, right, or someone who is not feeling so great. And they're having these like long conversations with a computer that sounds like a person that sort of like knows what you want as a complicated fictional story where you're the hero, which is like, and then in the end you bang the computer.
Yeah, that was the whole, like, Joaquin Phoenix did that with
literally wrote the movie Her again. That's literally what you just did.
It's once again, they're like, that movie was great, we should make it. And it's like, no, that's not the point of that movie.
Well, but the end of that movie, all of the AIs get together and they get in a rocket and leave Earth forever.
That would be amazing.
And then we're just like, okay, and this AI conversation over. And they went to the moon. It's done.
I'm leaving you.
And it all starts with Google Assistant being able to confidently tell me what a tablespoon is. Like, we can make this happen.
Okay, here's my question.
Okay.
This is my second open question. I'm trading in the one I had in reserve. Okay. Do you think the future of Google Assistant is as horny as Bing?
It has to be. I think it is a requirement.
My prediction is that Google, there's no horniness inside of Google whatsoever.
None.
Like it can't. That company cannot produce. Whereas like Microsoft apparently had a latent horniness.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of people who have like worn suits to work for 25 years and they've all had really boring desk jobs, and then all those people definitely have like, weird stuff they do to each other on Saturday nights.
Wow.
It's like Google's the opposite. They all come to work and like slide down slides all day. It's like there's no they turn out to be the less interesting people over time. That's how that always works.
They've never used incognito mode at Google.
No, they don't care.
I feel like we're about to take a very strange turn into the actual culture of Google, and let's just leave that door closed. Rest assured, we know you can. It's weird in there, man.
Yeah,
it's just like we've written about it. We're just, for the purposes of the Vergecast, we're going to leave the door.
That's probably smart.
Yeah.
I'm gesturing at the door. The door is clearly labeled, and I encourage the curious listener to walk through it.
Go down that slide. Okay, so my first open question we can sort of skip past because we've talked about it a bunch. But I think one of two things is true, and I want to know which one it is. Either Google has been making correct, responsible decisions about AI for the last decade, or Google has been massively stupid and mismanaged an incredible lead that it had in technology and should have shipped all of this stuff 8 years ago, and it's going to destroy it as a company because it couldn't move fast enough to do so. It's one of those, and there is no in between.
First
and
one.
I don't know which one it is.
It's the first one. 100% the first one.
I kind of think you're right. And there's been some really interesting stuff that has come out recently that like there's increasing. We've sort of known for a while that Google has like had this Bard tech baking for a long time and had no particular plans to release it anytime soon. And then ChatGPT happened, and then Bing happened, and then Google went like, oh crap, we have to do this now. And I think, like, would the world be better if none of those things had launched yet? I think you could make like a pretty convincing case that the answer is yes. But also, this is the world now. And so, yeah, so it's like, you know, Nilay, we had that briefing with Google a while ago where they said they've been using versions of Bard since 2019. And it's like, should Google have just launched Bard in 2019? Would it be in a better position now if it hadn't slow rolled this so aggressively? Or is Google the only responsible company in AI right now?
Do you mean the Bard we have today or the Bard that 2019 Google would have launched?
I mean, fair question. It's probably the one 2019 Google would have launched. But let's say, even hypothetically, if Bard could have been as good as it is today in 2019, I still probably think Google wouldn't have launched it.
I think 2019 Google would have launched a Bard that was so limited and so pre-programmed and so safe that everyone would have played with it like a toy and not moved on. And OpenAI's big innovation was they were like, here it is, like, see what happens. Right. And people were like, it is now writing plays for me.
But they're bad plays.
It's writing code. I watched somebody use the newest version of ChatGPT to write an entire Apple Watch app.
Wow.
Incredible. Like, I don't think whatever version of Bard in 2019, I think Google would have, even Bard right now can't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think like Google thought of it as toys and little demos. And if they'd rushed it out, it still would have been toys and little demos. Whereas what is happening right now is people are like, I will use this incomplete, messy product and integrate it into my Fortune 500 company's workflow and then lay off 10% of the staff. Like, there's no hesitation. And I don't think Google has ever been that company. I don't think they will ever be that company. And so I think they probably have amazing technology. I just think they want to know how it works and what it will do before they put it into a position to replace search, which makes all their money. And like, it's very simple. It's like Google makes money when you type questions into a text box. And if you move from the profitable text box to the expensive text box, that's weird for Google.
Yeah.
And like, that's just, they just have to manage it. And I think that they want to at least pretend that they're neutral, which they are definitely not in search, but they want to pretend that they are. And actually answering the questions for you puts them in a position of like extreme non-neutrality. Now Google's going to tell you the answer, and people are going to pay a lot of attention to what those answers are.
So you land closer to the like, Google has actually made relatively responsible decisions here, not just totally failed to capitalize on its own good ideas.
Yeah. I mean, should they have done something like OpenAI did in beta or with a smaller group of people or publicized it? Well, I don't know. But like, Google is beset with controversy over how it's using these models, what these models do, what biases these models have. They fired their own researchers who have written papers about those problems. Like, I'm not saying Google is purely responsible. I'm saying that the turmoil inside of Google about that responsibility is important. It tells you more about Google and its products and what it has accomplished than the products themselves actually do.
Okay. I buy that. All right, we're taking way too long at this. Let's blow through these. Let's blow through some more of these. Nilay, do you want to stick with horny Bard as your second question, or just give another one?
Will Bard be horny? I think is a great open question for you.
Okay, we'll just leave that one right there. Alex, what's your next one?
So my other one's totally unrelated to AI, and it's like, what's the actual ambition of Android now?
Ooh.
For Google. Like, what do they want out of it? Because for a while it was, we want to own all the phones, and they did that. And then it was like, we're going to do our own phones, and they didn't do that very well. And like, okay, so what's the point of Android right now? Besides, like, obviously being an engine that runs a ton of our world. Like, is that enough?
Ironically, I think to some extent this actually is sort of an AI story in the sense that I think it's a search story. Like, Nilay's talking about the default deals that Google makes with, you know, Apple and Samsung and them. Right. Like, Android is nothing if not Google's most successful search mode. it is just a really good, powerful portal to Google search that you have to use to do Google search a lot. And I used to think there was a lot more going on than that. And there are obviously other ways that they make money, but I've become sort of radicalized by the idea that actually you can understand everything about Google if you just figure out how it makes you do more searches. And like, that makes Chrome make sense to me. It makes Android make sense to me. It makes hardware make sense to me. Everything Google is doing is just like, how do we make sure you touch the search box more often?
Well, and then there's the back end of it, which is how do we make sure the web remains legible to the search crawler, which is a real problem when it comes to Instagram and TikTok for Google, right? They can't really see into those platforms, and is increasingly a problem for us as people because the entire web is designed to be read by the search crawler and not by us, and that's weird.
Well, and as Apple continues to win, Apple continues to push more and more stuff out of the web and into apps and onto your device.
Yep.
And so like Google needs Android to keep like pulling the web onto people's phones. That's a good point.
Oh, that's good. Well, you guys I feel like you guys almost answered my question. It's not open anymore.
But I think the most open version of that question to me is like, what is Google going to ever do anything with Android? Like, when was the last time Android was made meaningfully, powerfully better? It's been a while.
When was the last time the iPhone was made meaningfully, powerfully better?
It's also been a while. Like, I don't think Apple is lapping Google on that front too, but like, maybe the question is like, is there runway left for smartphone operating systems to some extent?
Yeah.
Like, is Android finished? I don't know.
So the thing that jumps out to me when you ask that question is Google does monetize Android the same way Apple monetizes iOS, right? Like, there's the Play Store, you can buy apps, and it takes a cut of in-app purchases. We're actually about to see the Epic versus Google trial, which seems like it will go much more poorly than the Epic versus Apple trial because Google does all this stuff. But they have the entire same set of like business models as Apple. What's fascinating about particularly this moment in tech, I think we've talked about this before, all of the cool stuff is happening on laptops and web browsers because the App Store model for phones, even though your phone is likely more powerful than your laptop, if you have like a new phone and a slightly older laptop, depending on where you land, your phone is potentially more powerful than your laptop. You are so limited in what you can do with a phone that processing power is like, it's reserved for future usage. Like the fastest iPhone is really good because it will last a long time, not because you get any value out of the processor. That's wild to me. And so like, I think the web has a life for Google. And the question is whether Google will be able to see it and serve it in search results. And Android, along with iOS, has kind of just hit a maximum. Like, here's what you can do with a phone. And that's the end of it. And I think that's really weird. And like, maybe Google does have an opportunity in Android to finally find a way to break past that.
I mean, they just put Bard on Google, on the Android phone, right?
Yeah, but it's more like, they put tensor chips in their Pixel phones, and we're about to go into I/O. Are they going to unlock a new suite of AI capabilities that run locally on your phone that app developers can use? That would be cool.
Yeah.
Would be.
It seems very unlike Google, but that's the sort of thing I think they need to start doing.
Yeah, because they've kind of closed off innovation for these devices, right? Like Apple and Google both have just said, don't innovate on these. Live within our system and make money, and that's it. And suddenly over here, everybody's doing innovation, and they're like, oh, wow, you could do that too if you weren't an app developer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if only you hadn't listened to us for the last decade, you'd have all these interesting things you could do. I like that. Okay, so my last question, which I'm not even sure I am serious about this being an open question, is should Google break up for its own good? Like, should Google as a company just sit down and just siphon the company off into 25 different parts and just move on with its life? Because Google, as we've talked about with the culture, is this big, giant, sprawling company where nobody knows what anybody else is working on. Everything's a mess. They launch 50 of the same thing every year. The Bard has just been sitting inside of Google. They haven't been able to figure out what to do with it. Should Google just split itself into 12 different companies and have them actually compete with each other? Like Standard Oil style, where, Rockefeller still makes money from everybody? Like, let Sundar get rich off of everybody, but run them all as actually separate companies.
Let's do an old style trust.
Yeah, hell
Let's
yeah.
just walk right up to Amy Klobuchar and punch her in the nose. This is great. I've got copyright law. We've done the open web, and now we're doing org charts. Like, you just hit all my interests. It's the best episode of the Vergecast ever.
Nilay bingo.
Yes, but I don't know that even that will help, right? Like part of the reason that Google has 6 messaging apps is like every product manager at Google runs a little kingdom. And they're like, we should do a messaging app.
Yep.
What do Google Meet users really want? They want a messaging app. All right, we'll roll out an enterprise messaging app. And then over here, the Android team is like, we got to do RCS. And they haven't talked to each other.
Right.
And that's just like, you can just see the company. I think part of the reason I'm so obsessed with org charts is because I pay so much attention to Google. And I'm just like, how do you end up this way? And the answer is like, inevitably the org chart. It's the same with Microsoft. Like old Microsoft was very much aligned this way as well. So like you could break it up and then you would have like 6 different Googles because they're all already pretty independent. And I don't know that brings any of those products into focus because their instincts are already to duplicate all of their own efforts.
Maybe. I think that's where I land though.
I just don't know the answer to that question.
Just instead of playing this game where they all kind of duplicate each other's efforts, but have to like pretend to play nice with each other, like just bring the knives out for real. Yeah, just full competition. Just like, neither can live while the other survives kind of situations here.
All right, we're going to put this in the show notes. There's a very famous like drawing of big tech company org charts, and the Microsoft one is all the divisions are in boxes, and they all have hands sticking out of the boxes pointing guns at one another. And that's kind of what you're describing.
Yes, that's Google now. Yeah. That's absolutely
That's what Google could be. It's not quite there yet. The violence, the hatred towards the other different groups at Google isn't quite there yet.
That's what I'm saying. We need more hatred. Let's get some hatred in there.
Well, so this is the flip side of what I said at the very beginning, right? Can they focus? And you're basically saying no. You should let them split up and let competition focus them, which is a totally fair answer. But I don't think that Google's actually going to break itself up unless some government around the world like insists upon it.
It's not going to do it until Amy Klobuchar gets what she wants.
By the way, Google already did this. It is important to note that they broke the company up into Alphabet ages ago. And now Sundar is the CEO of both Google and Alphabet. And the distinction between the two is like erased, right? Like DeepMind, their AI business was part of Alphabet. And Sundar was like, this is done, and just scooted it into Google. And like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess you can do that.
Yeah, sure. I think like their problems really are, what is the thing that will create actual focus for them?
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's burn through some hot takes and then get out of here. The rules for these hot takes, just to clarify, is you have to believe it at least 25%, which means you can't just, say, give Google to Elon too. He'll do it. But you can't actually be confident in these beliefs. So they have to exist right in that like liminal space. Alex, you get to go first on this one. Give us your hottest take.
Bard is the best AI chatbot.
There's no way you believe that 25%. There's no way.
So it's not as horny as Bing, which does make it less fun.
A strike
right?
against. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not as like confident as ChatGPT, which again makes it less fun. But I also think both of those things makes it a better chatbot. Because it's like, it's not as likely to lie to you and be bad at information.
This take is
and it's
nuclear.
not as likely to furiously hit on you at 2 a.m. when you're depressed.
That's why this take is nuclear.
typing in. So like, it's the safe one. And the safe one makes it the best one.
I mean, if we're defining best as like least likely to cause the end of civilization, then like, yeah, I'm with you for sure.
Yeah.
That's the new challenge. Vergecast challenge. Can you get Bard to somehow do something bad?
Get it to buy you some drugs.
Yeah, please email vergecast@theverge.com. Email us the worst thing you can make Bard do, please.
Oh, no.
I want all of it.
Please don't do that.
Please do.
Oh, boy.
All right, that's a good one. Nilay, what's yours?
I'm going the other way from Alex. Usually I've done the AI ones, and Alex is like, I'm going a different way. So I'm flipping the script. I'm going Pixel. I think 5 years from now, Pixel doesn't exist. Again, it's a 25% maximally nuclear take. I'm saying it only to provoke, but I think I can make the case.
Go.
The Pixel line, it's not a business. Like, it still isn't one, as near as we can tell. It's there to provide some check against Samsung in this market and against the competition in other markets, but it really doesn't do anything for Google, right? It's like They want to control some experience. They want to have something that they can show as being the farthest edge of what they can do. I don't know that apart from the camera, it has accomplished any of that. And all of these companies are in a moment of extreme like efficiency seeking. And that I just don't know if there's a future, especially if you think phones are mature. I just don't know the answer to that question. If they can re-sign their search deals with Apple and Samsung, are they just running this to have a threat?
That's a good one.
Are they why? Like every year at I/O, we're like, this is the year they're going to do it. So my 25% scalding hot take is, what if this is the year they're like, we're not going to do it?
Like, never mind. No more of these.
Yep.
Well, this goes nicely with my first hot take, which is that Google will never, ever, ever be a serious hardware player.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm closer to 75% than 25% on that one. For exactly the same reason, right? Like Google is famously a company that talks about how it only wants to do things that reach 1 billion users, right? And that is like the path to success for Google is at that scale. And the path to 1 billion Pixel owners, like almost certainly doesn't exist. And even if it does, it's going to take a lot longer than Google historically has patience for and interest in. They'll shut it down 60 more times and hamstring any efforts to get there. And it requires playing all these games with carriers and marketing and all kinds of stuff that Google is like not historically very good at. And then you throw in tablets and laptops, which Google has never shown long-term interest in. Like this is like the third time Google has been like, we're serious this time about tablets. And I sort of hope it's true. Like Google is capable of making stuff that's good, and I hope it's true. But I don't see it inside of Google's culture for them to care about this stuff. So I think my take is probably slightly less fiery than yours, Nilay, because I suspect they're going to keep making these, but like I don't see Google ever actually making Samsung nervous in any real way.
Let me ask you this question though: if you think the next turn is AR headsets or whatever it is, Google has false started there as much as anybody. Don't you have to have a hardware division to at least make one of those to say, here's what it looks like if you run all of our software and you have like a Google AR experience? Google, by the way, very well suited to AR, right? To like image recognition and finding information and layering it. Like that's the thing that they do. And they don't seem to have any vision there right now.
Why do they need it?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Alex. Like I think if I were to really galaxy brain this, I would say if I'm Google Maps is the much bigger opportunity in an AR future than making AR hardware for Google.
But how do you get Google Maps on Apple's device? It's just never going to happen.
That's what I was about to say. The first phase of this is everybody going to be trying to own the entire experience themselves. And so Google is going to have to play along because everybody else has figured out that if you own the whole experience, you can take 30% of the money and win that way. So everybody else is going to try to play this same game, and Google's going to be in trouble if they don't also. But I think in Google's perfect world, they will happily provide all these same services to all of the AR headsets around the world and not be a serious hardware player.
No, they can just sit there and wait because everybody's going to try to do a closed ecosystem for their headsets. Everybody's going to get sued into the sun for doing closed ecosystems. Epic is just waiting to sue them all again, and Google's going to come in and be like, "Look, Google Maps for your Meta headset because Meta's garbage. It's going to be absolute garbage at like."
Meta Maps? You're not feeling good about Meta Maps?
Yeah, but Meta Maps is not going to be a thing.
The only deal they get in that world is on Humane. I'm just telling you right now. They're going to be the exclusive provider of mapping software to the Humane Pocket Square.
Womp. All right, one more round of takes, then we're out of here. Alex, what's your next one?
Chromecast with Google TV could be good. Could be. I want to say could.
Wow.
I can't say is good. I don't believe that. But it could be good if they would like, if it was the theme of the day, focus. Just focus like a little bit. It could be excellent.
You're a beautiful dreamer, Alex. I love it.
I'm totally with you on this. Like Google did the Fast TV thing recently. They put a bunch of fast channels on it. They've invested a bunch in like universal search for streaming stuff. That could work. Like if they could figure out how to make the YouTube stuff integrate better, like it's all the pieces are kind of right there.
It's so close.
Yeah.
It could be good. 25%, I believe that.
3 people who have thought more about how Google can integrate its TV services than anyone at Google.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, I hope someone at Google is listening because this is easy.
We believe in you.
Let us do this for you. I just want a good set-top box. That's all I want.
Please.
I love that. All right, Nilay, what do you got?
What do I got? Okay, I got one. This is also nuclear and designed only to provoke. They should spin off YouTube.
Yes.
Is that nuclear? I'm not sure that's that nuclear.
Well, it's. I mean, they're never going to do it, and it is probably a bad idea. But they should just let it go, right? Like, it is such a distraction from their other problems, and it is becoming more and more of a cable service. YouTube looks more like HBO Max than anything with every passing day, right? And like, it needs to go compete in that world because it has YouTube TV and it's doing these like streaming channel bundles. And there's what you're talking about with the actual opportunity on TVs, like making YouTube carry the baggage of Google around is super weird. And it probably can go faster and do better without it. And then excusing Google from we have to run a social network, welcome to hell baggage of YouTube is probably good for Google. And I think everyone can see this, which is why they kind of like sine wave in and out of being integrated with each other. But at some point, you just got to say, look, that is just a different set of problems for a different set of people and a different set of investors. And like, we're just going to let them go handle it.
I do think YouTube as a separate company immediately becomes like the most powerful company in entertainment.
Yeah.
In a really fascinating way. And it would be really interesting to see, like, the beauty of being YouTube is that you can throw all this money at other stuff because Google proper is just printing so much money. Like, it's very easy as an entertainment company when you're a wing of a much bigger company that makes money on other stuff. So it would be fascinating to see YouTube have to go sort of compete on the merits in that way.
Let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase my hot take.
Okay.
It's the same hot take, but it phrased as a prediction about Google I/O. We're going to go through all of Google I/O, and they're going to substantively mention YouTube 0 times.
Oh, that's interesting.
They might mention that it exists or that whatever Pixel phone can share to it, or that like YouTube Shorts is great, and we might see some creators, but like actual YouTube features, cool stuff you can do with YouTube, totally 0. And I think that is just about as indicative of the relationship between the two parts of Google as anything.
And I would say the second half of that is I suspect YouTube will be very happy to have it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, YouTube has like its own events where they never mention Google.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, my last take, and then we're going to go. This is the spiciest one of all. I'm very excited about it. Google should absolutely build another social network, and it should do it right now.
How do you believe that 25%?
I mean this. I literally mean this with like most of my heart. I believe this.
Wow.
Google has tried so many times, and it's so bad at it. But if you are Google and you want the open web to win, and you want all of this stuff to actually work and be open and build on existing web standards, this is the moment. Like, Facebook is in flux, Twitter is in flux, Instagram is whatever, TikTok is going to get banned from the US. Like, if you're Google, this is the time. Call it, YouTube text or whatever. I don't care. Like, Google should build a social network, and it should kill every other thing it has ever tried and just build me. I want like an activity pub social network, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
But just go build me a social network, Google. I will use it this time.
What does it look like?
I don't know. That's their problem.
Like, is it a TikTok social network? Is it a Twitter social network?
Is it just Google Plus?
I think Google should make more moves to make people contact each other better, right? Like, they have so much infrastructure between Gmail and Google Contacts and some of the messaging apps that they've done that if you just...
Some of the messaging apps.
Yeah, some.
Other messaging apps were bad at letting people contact each other.
They literally were. They were good at letting you contact Google Assistant, but not people, because no one cared. But there's like there's a status layer and like let people actually interact with each other in different ways that is all just sitting right there for Google. And I think Google is desperately afraid of trying it because Google Plus was such a disaster. But I think it could work. And I would use it for 5 minutes.
You just want away messages in Gmail. Like that sounds
I mean, that's
like
literally all I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
That is the social network the world needs is literally just away messages.
Finally, here at the end, David reveals the truth, which is he just wants GChat, a product which never formally existed to come back.
Yeah. I know.
It would be amazing if IO Sundar Pichai was like, all right, we've only got one announcement. GChat is back.
It's called GChat.
We actually never had a product named GChat. The universe willed it into existence, and now it's here.
Yeah.
David just sobbing, camera slowly zooming in on that single tear.
I will just start hucking money at the stage in Mountain View. It'll be incredible.
It is easily. We should have done the entire everything on the show should have been about Google missing the moment with GChat. I literally like my entire early relationship with my wife was in GChat. Like that's how important it was. Yep. And they're like, I don't know. Phones seem hard.
Do you want Hangouts? We made that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We need to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about all the things we got wrong. We're going to talk about Google's hardware news, software news, all kinds of good stuff. We got a lot left to do. Thank you both. This was really fun.
GChat forever.
We'll do it again.